Commissioner has asked a few weeks ago an answer from the Council what to do next with Macedonia. So we have a conclusion of the Council now. Do you think that the Commissioner is satisfied with the answer he needed?
Well, as you know, the European Commission has recommended for the 5th time this year to open accession negotiations with Macedonia, and of course Commissioner has repeated that it's really necessary from the member states to state clearly what's their idea, how they want to proceed, because the situation where you have recommendation for 5 years in a row and nothing is moving is probably not the ideal situation, both for the EU and for the country itself. So we had a decision of the member states this week where they took note of the recommendation and they decided to revert to this issue next year based on the progress achieved and update from the European Commission. So we are in a situation where the European Commission will continue to work with Macedonia also in the framework of the high-level accession dialogue, which has proven to be a very useful tool to maintain the European agenda on top of the priorities of the government and political elites in Macedonia. And we hope that we will be able to move together with Macedonia forward on its European path, because as we said, it's really necessary to move forward.
How to interpret the fact that this year we are missing very important content which was present in the last year report conclusion of the Council? Means that European Commission has to be much more involved within the process of European integration of Macedonia. Now there is almost nothing. It's kind of empty conclusion, if I may say.
Well, that goes without saying that the European Commission is deeply involved in the process, in the accession process of Macedonia, because we are the ones who are driving the process together with Macedonia. The European Commission was the one who came up with the idea of the high-level accession dialogue as a bridge towards the opening of the accession negotiations and advancing the European agenda and the necessary reforms in the country. And I think it paid off. I mean, all of us can see the results of the high-level accession dialogue, and the fact that it's going to continue, I think it's a good signal of the engagement and the commitment of the European Commission. And if you are referring to the content of the conclusions, I would say that in the conclusions the member states recognized and welcomed the progress which was achieved thanks to the high-level accession dialogue, and they will be reverting to the issue of deciding about the opening of the accession negotiations, also based on our update on how the reform process is going also in the framework of the high-level accession dialogue. So I think Commission remains involved, is involved and will be involved, because, as I said, we are the ones who are advancing and dealing with Macedonia on an everyday basis in order to move it forward.
Well, why not to have the spring report this year?
Well, as Commissioner said, if there will be ground for any special report, he will be ready to do it. It was the same case last year. He said, if there is a need, if there is a ground, if there is enough substance, we can report if there is groundbreaking developments needing attention from the member states. Otherwise, if there will be no such a special report, then we have, of course, the possibility to report as we do regularly every year in the progress report in October.
There are some interpretations that the member states are losing interest for Macedonia. Do you read this way the conclusion of the Council?
It's not up to the European Commission to give interpretations of the decisions of the member states. What is important for us as Commission is the unequivocal and unanimous commitment of the member states, first to the enlargement policy as one of the key policies and most successful policies of the European Union, and second, the repeated and reaffirmed commitment recognition of the European perspective of the countries of the Western Balkans, including Macedonia. So I think the parameters are clear. There is clear EU perspective for Macedonia as well. There is clear commitment of the EU to advance the enlargement process based on conditionality and a strict and fair approach. That means once the country delivers on what it is expected to deliver, the EU will move this country. In case of Macedonia, you know that we noted progress in some areas. We know that we expressed concerns in some areas like freedom of expression, situation of the media. This is a source of concern for the Commission and for the member states. So there is still work to be done in order to improve the situation. And I mean, based on fulfilling all the necessary criteria, including implementation of the agreements, 1st of March agreement and other agreements, improvements in the area of judiciary, fight against corruption and organized crime, in the area of the rule of law. So once all the steps are being done and complete it in a satisfactory way, then the member states will have no other choice than to make a positive assessment, also taking into account the progress in the area of regional cooperation and good neighborly relations.
They have other arguments. They can say that the name issue is still not resolved, for example. Well, it's about, we are talking now about the reform processes or the name issue. What we have to achieve in order to start a negotiation?
I think it's a good question for the member states, and the member states have been clear in their views as formulated in the conclusions of their meeting from this week. And they said, I mean, further progress is needed, and they will revert to the issue next year. And when I say further progress, of course, the name issue is one of the key stumbling blocks, and that's why we are repeating that the status quo is really not acceptable. Both sides need to exercise a lot of efforts to arrive to a mutually acceptable solution under the auspices of the special envoy of the UN. But we are ready to help. We are ready to assist you in this process. We are ready to support you in this process. But as I said, good neighborly relations and regional cooperation is an area where there is a lot of emphasis from the member states, and more efforts are apparently needed in order to satisfy all the member states.
Peter, the Commissioner was heavily involved in the process of the solution of the name issue last year. We saw Commissioner even in New York. Could we expect that he will still involve this way in the process of the solution of the name issue?
Well, the broad parameters are clear. This is a UN-driven process, and a process where both sides need to agree with the help of the special envoy of the UN. The European Commission, of course, is very much interested in this, following this and supporting this as much as we can, because there is a direct impact on the progress of Macedonia on its integration path. So, of course, Commissioner is ready. He said it last year, he repeated it this year. We see a way how we can tackle the possibility to help to solve the name issue together with the opening of accession negotiations. I think this offer is still on the table, but it's up to the both sides to agree on that, the UN to accept this approach, and then the member states to give us the mandate to proceed accordingly.
What's the assessment of the Commissioner of the process? I mean, do you think that both sides are really willing to make progress?
I think both sides are aware that progress is needed, and this is what everybody is encouraging both countries to do, to realize that the status quo is untenable, that we really need to move because there are too many things at stake, and everybody can profit from a final solution of this issue, because this brings calmness, this brings better and improved the neighborly relations, and that means more stability and more focus and more energy being dedicated to issues which are really important for both countries. That means improving the ties, stimulating business, cultural, political contacts and exchanges, and ultimately for your country moving in the accession process, because this is the key. I mean, the reform process has to have logical outcome, and the logical outcome is a movement and progress on the integration path.
The Vice Minister of European Integration asked on behalf mainly on behalf of the ethnic Albanian ruling party, DUI, asked for an involvement, clear involvement of the European Union within the process for the solution of the name issue. There was no reference to this in the last the conclusion of the Council. Could we expect that the European Union will be involved in this process in a much more concrete way, like, for example, it was in the process of the solution of the problem between Pristina and Belgrade?
Every involvement of the European Union, but European Union that's member states as well, and since this dispute is between your country and one of the member states, basically it involves the EU in a way as well, and we have said several times that the European Union is not very well equipped to deal with the issues between one of the member states and the accession countries. That's one point. But if you are asking about possible involvement of the European Commission, which as a body, as an institution of the European Union, has a lot of possibilities, as you mentioned, to facilitate facilitate, for example, the normalization dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia. There are many possibilities, but the bottom line is agreement of the member states. That means consensus among the member states, among the existing member states, that they want the Commission to become active, to give us mandate to do something. And then, of course, you need agreement from both sides of this dispute that they agree with the involvement of the European Commission. So there are many possibilities, but bottom line is we need agreement and consent from both sides of the issue, and then unanimous agreement by the EU, giving us as Commission mandate to be more active. And if you don't find something in the conclusions, in the decisions of the member states, something from what was suggested before, that means there was no agreement among the member states that they would agree with such proposal.
Last year, there was an agreement from the Council for the involvement of the Commissioner?
Well, if there was an agreement, we would be involved. But as I said, I mean, this process...
The Commissioner was involved last year.
No, I mean, it's not involvement like we would have in case of the special envoy of the UN. As I said, I mean, this needs to be very clear. The name issue is issue between the two countries where there is facilitator or under the auspices of the UN. The European Commission, European Commissioner responsible for Macedonia, is involved in a way where he can support this process, where he can show that we really care, we can provide whatever assistance needed in talking to both sides and trying to be constructive in any way both sides can wish. So it's not like bringing the involvement of the Commission on the same level like UN, because for that we would need a special arrangements, agreement from both sides and from the UN. But we are saying no, this is a process driven by the UN, facilitated by the UN, with both parties involved. We as Commission, we are always there, very much interested in it, very much interested and ready to support in any way we can, and in any way both parties and the UN wish us to be supportive.
Could we expect that Madam Ashton is going to come up in the process together with Commissioner?
I mean, it's not up to me to speculate on different options. It's primarily up to the two sides to agree on the modalities. I think the current framework is there. Nobody is questioning that framework. It's under the auspices of the UN. So UN is driving this process. If all the main actors in this issue decide they want to have involvement from anyone else, they can ask for it, and then after appropriate procedure, that involvement can become reality. But I think we are at the level of speculations, because it's not up to me to speculate what possible scenario there might be. It's up to the both sides, both parties, to define what they see as the best way to arrive to a solution. If they say the best way to arrive to a solution is to have someone else aside or apart from the United Nations, then the EU will decide and give the necessary or appropriate mandate, and then we can see and proceed whatever option there might be on the table. But the bottom line again is the agreement and consensus of both sides that they want someone else than the UN.
After all, may I say, unsuccessful mission, do you think that European Union and Commission also is losing the leverage in the process of Macedonian integration in the European Union?
I don't think it's about having leverage, because the leverage is the perspective to become EU member. I think Macedonia, when it submitted the application, did it very consciously with the aim and with the goal to become EU member. And we haven't seen or haven't heard any other declaration or any other action from Macedonian official side that they would be thinking about withdrawing the application or giving up on the membership. That's why we stay engaged. That's why we will continue with the high-level accession dialogue to move the reform process forward, to create conditions conducive to opening of the accession negotiations, not to lose time, keeping the EU agenda on the top of priorities of all the political stakeholders in Macedonia. And if Macedonia decides, and that's speculation again, because we have no facts to think otherwise, but should Macedonia decide that the EU perspective is not that attractive anymore, they can withdraw any time. This is a free will of any accession of any candidate country, like was the case with Iceland, for example. We are not forcing anyone to anything, only we keep an eye on if a country decides to become a member, we keep an eye on the fact that this country completes the necessary criteria.
You said that the HLAD is going to continue. Could we expect the visit of the Commissioner?
Of course, I mean, regardless of HLAD Commissioner is visiting regularly the countries of the portfolio. This is the case of Macedonia. Last year, I think he visited 5 or 6 times. So, of course, I mean, at a certain point, he will be coming to Skopje soon. And when we will be that far that we will have the program, then we will of course be happy to announce it. And you know that we are coming regularly. And since there is this stress of the member states on the high-level accession dialogue as a very important platform in the accession process, we will be working on this. And as I said, let's hope that we will see each other in Skopje soon.
Thank you, Peter.
Благодарам.